a while. We're rusty. We're not used to this now.
We're rusty. I need to go out on the kids' trampoline for a bit just to get kind of going here. But we're back. We're back. It's episode 24. We've been away for a few weeks, and it's actually, as you were saying, Chris, people were reaching out asking, "Have you stopped the podcast? Where are you guys? What's going on?" What was your response?
Yeah, it's just been busy summer, to be honest. Like we did say we'll get it up and running again. I know people listen obviously and value it, so yeah, we'll get it running, dedicate more time to it here. But it's just been busy period. I know I was away, you were away for a bit. We've been obviously building content for Emerge21 for clients, working with clients. So yeah, it's just been a busy month. But yeah, we're still firmly here as Emerge21, and but I think we make sure that we make this more consistent. I know life gets in the way sometimes, um, but yeah, we're here and we're gonna keep pumping out the content as usual.
Yeah, no, that's it. And as you say, life gets in the way, and like things take over. Your family, you're off on holidays, etc. There's different things. I actually had surgery on my neck for a random lump that developed around about November last year. So that's been playing on my mind quite a bit. But thankfully, it's been removed and stuff. So feeling good, feeling a lot better. And you can actually refocus on things again. So it's good to get back on. And obviously, it's myself and Chris on this episode. But we'll be kind of looking at talking a little bit about the current market, the state of the market, like what Bitcoin's doing, where it's come from, and what's happening in general, the outlook for the future, all the usual stuff. And then we'll be looking at getting more guests on in the coming weeks and months again, just back to the normal format. But I think we'll just kick off about kind of like what is happening. Like over the last, it's roughly been about 5 to 6 weeks since we've actually done an episode. A lot's happened in that time. In a way, it has, but ultimately, the thing with Bitcoin is Bitcoin does what Bitcoin does, and it will keep going, keep growing. The graph will keep moving up to the right hand side. There'll be volatility as always, but like, what are you seeing at the moment, Chris? How are you seeing Bitcoin developing over the last sort of couple of months? There's been a lot of obviously, the smaller companies coming on board with Treasury plays, large companies doing that as well. But even within the UK, I'm not so much Ireland-based. Like, there's not so much many Ireland-based companies, I don't think, have jumped on the Treasury, play. There's been a couple of high-profile UK companies doing it. Obviously, US and other global companies as well. But like, what's your take on that, and how do you think that's affecting the current market cycle?
Yeah, and that's where I was kind of going to go with that. Like, I think the next few months are very interesting based on historical trends. Like this kind of quarter of every 4 years has been, a massive pump usually. But I don't know if that's going to play out this way. And maybe, and I'll get your thoughts on it as well. Maybe, it's a different style of investors now. I don't know, always have to come back. Bitcoin is more than an investment, but that's the way it's being treated by quite a lot of people at the minute. To me, it's money, and to me, it's the biggest idea of our generation. And for hundreds of years, I actually think. But it's been treated as an investment, and people are going to behave that way. Like people are going to take chips off the table at certain stages. But it is interesting. It looks more of a stable market than it's ever looked, especially for the year after the halving. If that's what kicks off the cycle, or the business cycle itself. I know M2 money supply globally had been increasing for a while, and I think still has. There's maybe a small divergence in it, but yeah, there's lots of things at play, and then obviously, as you say, like the treasury companies, which have had a lot of attention. But the main thing is Bitcoin hasn't changed. Like it's still Bitcoin. Like I think people forget about the unbelievable scarcity that it has at times during these times, and over the long run, you want to know what you hold and hold on to that as tight as you can, because there will be other people out there looking for your Bitcoin, and they'll find ways of doing it. And again, now if these large institutions are here, they will find a way to check out people. And it mightn't be, a big drop or a big crash to scare people out. It might be boredom, and that's the way people see it. And again, boredom is probably a strong word, because I think 2023 it's up over 100%, 2024 it's up over 100%, 2025 not so great so far, but again we're moving on to that territory. So it's interesting. And why I say the next few months is because it's make or break for the cycle again. But I've been here, you've been here a few times, different cycles, and you hear the same narrative. This time's different. My kind of take on it, and again, I don't like to think too short term, it'll probably, because it's not as mature as people think yet, it'll probably play out similar to before. We might get a pump sometime over the next 6 months or so. Like, and again, this is my base case, over 51%. But there is the probability that as well, which I think is on the lesser side, that it'll continue to run and well into 2026. And I've seen a few indicators today as well saying the stock market is probably in a good position. And again, this is all historical anecdotes and data where some indicators have hit. And for the next 12 months, usually the S&P 500 general stock market rallies for these next 12 months. Again, yeah, a lot of factors at play. But I think we'll know more within the next few months. And I think we probably continue to cover some of this topic for the next while because cycles has been such a huge narrative and the whole thing. I would actually like it to break. I would like cycles to stop and people to stop trading it as much. Now that's not my decision. Everybody's entitled to do what they want, but it would actually make a more interesting narrative. Like then if it was to start increasing at a more stable rate over time, and there wasn't this kind of blow off top and bear market and whatever. There's always going to be dips and corrections and stuff like that. But yeah, I think by the time we come January, February, we'll understand now if Bitcoin has changed the dynamic. What's your thoughts in general then? Do you subscribe to, cycles are going to happen? Like this is just a trend? Do you think there's new players at the table that change that?
Yeah, like again, it's like anything in these markets and the unpredictability of it all as well. And then when you tie in, geopolitical changes and divergences that are happening across the globe, like you've got all these factors at play, and it's hard to really, set a prediction on what's happening. But I think the cycles probably will continue as they did previously. I think they've changed. I think since probably obviously this term being kicked around a lot, the institutional investors have come on board. But I think over the past sort of 8 to 12 months, especially, I think that has been a big shift. Like you're noticing, I'm sure you're probably finding the same thing. There's not as much retail or friends or family or people talking around Bitcoin or about Bitcoin, asking questions around it. I just haven't had that kind of those messages coming through. Maybe the odd one here and there back at the start of the year, but in recent months, even with all-time highs and things like that, there's just kind of a silence there across the retail space in general. I think it's a strange one. The way Bitcoin's playing over the last few months, I think it's a lot to do with the psychology around the markets and with the Treasury plays as well. I think that will continue. I think there's a bit of a frenzy a few months ago around Bitcoin treasuries, treasury companies. It reminded me a little bit about sort of the 2017, 2018 ICOs and things like that. There was a lot of kind of hopium and, positivity around, these companies are adopting Bitcoin in their treasury and their balance sheets, which I think all companies should. But there was a very kind of a big kind of psychological just play on that, I think, generally, and people jumped on board. And a lot of people, as usually what happens, they buy into the company's stock price at a high price, and then there's a bit of a drawdown. But long term, the treasury company play is the way to go for any business, in my mind. Small businesses, large companies, public companies. But in saying that, I think for me as a small business as well, looking at this, you know, having the ability to make decisions yourself as a business owner and, decide to put Bitcoin on your balance sheet versus the public company play, and all the kind of narratives around that and all the sort of barriers around trying to, make changes, make decisions around that. That's a big advantage for small businesses, and it will continue to be in the future. And if Bitcoin does play out as we think it will, the small business owner is at an advantage because they're nimble, they're flexible, they can, make decisions very quickly. And it takes the pressure off, I think, in a lot of ways as well, from a mindset point of view. If you're stacking sats on a regular basis, no matter what the price is. And I think that's for me as well. I've really been ignoring the noise in the marketplace. You get to the point of understanding what Bitcoin is, why it's such an important asset, why all the other stuff is generally noise. And in saying that, like you can look at the different things MicroStrategy are doing, or sorry, strategy as they're called now, the different options around, the stocks, and the plays that they're working with around the Bitcoin cycle and around how Bitcoin plays out. You can obviously, well, I would use the term not gamble, but you can invest in those structures certainly. But long-term savings, things don't change with Bitcoin in my mind. It's a long-term play, and as long as you're dollar cost averaging DCA, you're gonna come out better in the long term overall. It doesn't matter how the cycles play out. Just keep doing that. Keep focusing on the longer term time horizon. And it's always been a 4 year time horizon for me generally. Always looking out 4 years. If you're trying to make a quick buck in the short term, feel free to do whatever you want to do. If you're doing it within a company that's backed by Bitcoin, then that's probably a better bet than sort of gambling with other stocks and shares and various things. But everybody has their own kind of risk tolerance and decisions, so that they have to make around what they have and what they want from the short term, from the long term. But cycles, I think, will continue. I think they'll dampen just purely with adoption over time. But again, it's always a thing. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
What do you say to Alan then to like, and again, I think the probability of a, I don't want to call it a super cycle, but an extended cycle is higher now than it's ever been because of but I'm a part of a couple of group chats and, see people chat about this, but they're like, I'm going to sell in quarter 4, 2025. Like, what do you say to somebody like that? And again, we don't give financial advice and it's um, their choice, what they want to do. But like, some people are guaranteeing this to themselves that
Mhm.
quarter 4, like November, it's gonna hit on this date and or this month, and I'm gonna just take all profits and that'll be me. And then it's gonna go down 80%, and I'm gonna buy back lower.
You're playing a risky game, aren't you? You just don't know. The problem is you just literally just don't know what's going to happen. You can predict all you want. You can base it off, historical trends and various things, but something can just come along like overnight and change the narrative massively. And we've seen this in the past. These things have always occurred throughout history. So I think you can, if you want to, again, it depends on your risk tolerance. It depends what you want from the asset itself for your finances, for your future. But it's a risky play. Like I don't know, is that something you've ever done or thought about yourself in the past? Have you ever, tried to play it in the previous cycles and thinking,
Yeah, well, I got it in kind of 2016, 2017. Didn't really know what cycles were. I did look at the history of Bitcoin, but at that time in 2017, it just felt like this is a new, this is a new paradigm. This is new money. This is gonna go on forever. Not like I'm sure there's seasoned investors in there or people seeing money on the table and taking profits. Um, so I didn't think like that the first time. Then in 2021. You're kind of looking at it and saying strategies on Tesla bought, Square had a chunk of Bitcoin, there's a couple of other ones, Galaxy Digital and all this. And then obviously FTX and stuff, even though I was reading quite a lot of, smoke around those companies, and BlockFi and things like that. It didn't seem too great, but again, it seemed like look, the institutions are here, people in the big companies with big balances of cash are starting to buy this. This is going to kick on from here. Now, there's a couple of things that probably dampened that as well with the China mining ban, but ultimately FTX was kind of the real kicker in this, and that was kind of contagion. Then there was multiple companies creating paper Bitcoin in the background. So even at that point, I probably had the feeling again it was going to go on for longer, and it ended early. Again, it could happen again. Like we could already be past a local top. But I've never thought I'll time this and give it away. And one of the main reasons is because of that. I didn't want to give away Bitcoin in case it did, because eventually everyone's going to catch on. Eventually, this is going to be money forever for everyone. Eventually, people are going to understand that real estate, bonds, stocks, they're all garbage compared to Bitcoin. And I think that's the way you need to see it then, Alan, and people listening. Like, if you ever watch BlackRock, how they kind of accumulate assets over time, not like they see real estate, for example, and they bought up chunks of real estate very strategically, knowing that it's a scarce asset and knowing that if we buy up enough over time, then people are going to have to bid higher for it, and we're gonna sell them. They're and I know back to the point that everybody makes as well. Like it's not BlackRock buying Bitcoin; it's their clients, but they're advising their clients, and they'll be talking about the scarcity and talking about look. Imagine this was real estate. I know first of all, Bitcoin is a much bigger idea than and it's not an investment. It's money, the most scarce asset in the world that's ever existed. So I'm not comparing it to real estate, but imagine if it was real estate and there was only 21 million houses, which people can relate better to real estate than they can Bitcoin right now. But imagine there was only 21 million of them around the world. And BlackRock wanted them and they understood this. Like they would shake people out. They would find ways to shake people out. They would take it off retail, by some means, as I say, whether it's boredom, whether it's FUD, whether it's, through media, through whatever, they would find a way to try and shake them out so that they could have that bigger percentage. And that's what I feel is going on at the minute. I feel like BlackRock's kind of they've understood it and they're trying to advise their clients like stay with us. Um, you need to allocate more and more to Bitcoin. We can't do it fast. You can't just rocket up the market. But they're taking their share of these 21 million scarce coins, as many as they can, and retail are probably going to give some of them up very naively,
Hmm.
through either thinking that they're going to take a profit. It's like, and they're going to end up either buying it back at a higher price or maybe, you know, I've seen people get burned and never go back to Bitcoin for a long, long time. Like maybe even forever, they get tainted in that. So I never subscribed to I don't want to hand away my Bitcoin because I understand the scarcity. I understand there's only 21 million of these coins. You get as much of a fraction as you can every time because the more people that catch on to this, and think like this, it's going to go faster and faster over time. I don't know, people say diminishing returns, but I do think that there's going to be this S curve adoption ultimately, and people need to be ready for that. I think people are still, when they talk about, you future models and power law and what Michael Saylor has out there over the next 21 years. Like I think they're nice models and everything, and when you plot them out, they look good. But ultimately, I think people are, and it doesn't seem like it every day. People are going to rationalize this over time, and like if enough humans are rational thinkers, like there's going to be a moment and time over the next, I don't know, decade or so where people are going to look for this, and they're gonna do what they need to do to get it because it's going to be the only thing worth getting, like real estate, bonds, stocks, whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of my view on it.
No, I think that's right. I think at the moment, the way everything is, people just get they're very distracted by other things going on, which is understandable. Obviously, if you turn on the TV, watch anything in recent times, you're being distracted by many, many things. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out exactly what your outlook is, what your timeline is, and realize Bitcoin is that scarce asset. It's one of the most important things to understand and to really get a grasp on generally. It's something that it's important for everybody to do, but it's again in recent times I've just found a lot of like kind of a suppression of interest overall generally. Even talking to people generally in the business communities, I would maybe even touch on the topic, but people wouldn't be as maybe interested or as again probably because they're again business owners. They're many are just struggling to get by. Basically, that's what's happening, and bringing in this new concept of Bitcoin to people and trying to explain it, even though in our minds like Bitcoin's not a new concept, but you have to realize for 99+% of the population, it still is a very new concept, and a lot of people still view it as a scam or some kind of thing that's going to, as you say, they'll get burned with. And if you try to play that trading game as well, the likelihood is you will get burned. So it's just a concept that again takes time. And I think the price action, I think it's become suppressed. Some people as well with the current culture is instant, returns or instant gratification around things. In a way, some people think Bitcoin's become a bit boring because of the price. People ignore it because of the price in dollar terms. But again, you have to really bring it back to fundamentals, what it is, why it's important, your long-term time horizon, what are you trying to do for your future, for your family, etc. It's the only asset that really gives you that assurance, and the ability to actually ignore the noise. And it just puts you in a more peaceful place in that it really does get your time back. You really, if you can stack Bitcoin on a regular basis, own more Bitcoin each month than you did before, and just continue doing that and plod along. It's not a race to well, it is in a way. You got Michael Saylor acquiring as much Bitcoin as possible, treasury companies, pumping it onto their balance sheet, and hopefully those companies will hold it on their balance sheet. But it's the real thing about understanding it as an asset class, and then, slowly acquiring it as an individual, as a small business.
Is there another way to look at this though as well, where like a lot of people are public obviously about Bitcoin, but like again, if you're ready to understand it and you were miles behind, one of the best things to do would be to quietly accumulate. So not make any fuss, not make any noise. Like would the US position themselves, for example, or certain countries position themselves to have accumulation through mining or through whatever means? Like they need to set up that infrastructure. Like, do you think that the again, we know that some of these institutions control the media and stuff like that. Like, do you think that they could suppress some of that positive talk about Bitcoin, even though it's been definitely much more positive in the media recently? But do you think
Mm.
they can dial up and dial down that, like, and just basically quiet the noise now and say, like, over the next while, we're gonna we're putting these things in place. You're not to over sensationalize Bitcoin. You're not to get until we get a certain level, and then they can dial it up whenever they feel like they've got a certain amount. But again, I know you don't really have a certain amount that you can get to because if you understand what it is, you want as much as you can. But like, do you subscribe to any of that kind of thoughts? Any of those thoughts?
Yeah, like absolutely. Like from a media point of view, and as you say, how media is controlled to a certain well, to a large degree, they have the opportunity to do that on a global scale or national scale, whatever it may be, and that will influence people's decision making around accumulation of Bitcoin, whether they want to pay it attention or just completely ignore it. And I just find that probably has been what's been going on over the last few months. There has been a suppression and a couple of more positive articles and things within different, large publications and media publications as well. But the overall ability to do that and suppress Bitcoin as a narrative within the mainstream is definitely probably something that's happened, and that's probably why you notice the knock-on effect that friends, family aren't as inquisitive about it. Perhaps that is the case, and maybe that's
Yeah.
what manipulates the market price. That maybe that's one of the biggest factors.
I remember a few times Google, banning ads on YouTube and stuff for Bitcoin related stuff, and obviously, like, and again, um, like a lot of these are owned by institutions that can have influence, like, and you can dial up, you can change the algorithm whenever you want, like, so. And again, not saying that that's happening. Like, again, this could be just all organic, and again, it's been the best performing asset over the last 4 years again, and it's been phenomenal. But it does feel a bit quiet, muted compared to probably this days last night. It was probably just about now that it usually does kick off. And the other thing that I don't really like getting into too much is the kind of the months. Like the September is always a bad month, October
October.
as they call it. And it does happen in that pattern. And I know there's business cycles and stuff like this, but I don't really subscribe to it. And I think people get caught up trading in kind of month to month stuff as well. But like it has been still probably quieter than we expected. And if I took over 2 cycles actually, it's not been like compared to 2013, 2017, it's not anywhere near that. Uh, yeah, there could be more to come, but again, I think over the next few months we'll really be able to see whether that is going to play out differently or
Hmm.
the same.
Yeah. And I suppose as it gets bigger and as it grows and it eats up more market share, there's going to be more factors impacting, how it plays out over time, how it develops, and in a way that in effect should potentially suppress the volatility over time. And it could, as you say, the cycles could end up breaking. It could be a broken cycle where it'll just slowly grind sideways and gradually grind upwards over time. That might slow down. It might be more consistent. It's just, again, it's one of those things. There's no way of predicting this. It's just knowing that Bitcoin will always do what Bitcoin does, and it has been doing for the last, 15 plus years. And that's where the assurance that you have and the knowledge base around that is going to protect you going forward. And it is like it's a crazy, like we've said this before many a time, and it always seems to be it's a crazy world at the moment, but it really is. Like when you break down potentially what's coming as well, in October they're starting to potentially roll out within Europe the CBDCs, doing a test bed with that. That will probably extend through into 2030. Like that will happen. You know, I can see myself even as a business owner, the actual accepting cash on in business, like over the last year especially, like it's reduced so much. It's literally all card payments. And then if you introduce a CBDC into the fray as well, like that's going to change the game massively from a privacy standpoint, from control, surveillance, and all that stuff, which is a bigger topic of conversation. But it all feeds back into Bitcoin as well. Why Bitcoin's so important, you know, the freedom money, you know, self-custody of Bitcoin, it's property rights, something that you own and can custody yourself, and not be totally controlled through a CBDC. I think once that happens, if that, well, I say when it happens, it will happen. You know, it's that narrative of, you know, total control by government systems, um, and it's plain to see that what's happening. It's the control is required from a government standpoint, you know, from the population, total control, and the CBDC is the next nail in the coffin for that. Um, but are you like what's your kind of take on that, Chris, as well, from a CBDC point of view? Like, how important is Bitcoin really when you look at what's happening and what's coming down the road?
Yeah, and I always take the long term view on this, like over a couple of 100 years, and see how the whole banking system has just become more centralized. And CBDC is just a natural stepping stone. Like if you think about it, like there was gold in vaults, there was paper receipts. You know, you can go through the whole history, and it kind of led to the fiat system, which is system of control, and obviously through big tech as well. But CBDC is just a natural step in centralization. Obviously, Bitcoin's been there to combat that. But I think one of the biggest things, I know we've talked quite a lot about price and cycles and stuff, but it's the like what's been built out around Bitcoin as well, like all these different payment methods. I'm glad to see maybe some easing up in the US and hopefully in other jurisdictions, but Europe not. I don't hold much hope for. But like building out, like we've been working with companies over the last month as well, trying to build out things on Nostr and various different wallets and stuff. Like that's amazing to see. Like, and that is the combat for it. Like to me, and one of the things actually associated with the bear market, um, like usually people build a lot more in the bear market. The price is a
Mhm.
distraction. People do more, podcast and interviews and PR work during there for the company during that time. If in a bull market, whereas like maybe because it's been more of a suppressed market, and again still probably being a bit spoiled saying suppressed, but like it's not had that kind of crazy euphoric. Then people are still building and people are building these tools, and I think we're going to outbuild the CBDC over time. I think these tools are being developed, and Bitcoin itself, like again, nobody stops anybody or me send money to you or anyone else that I want to send money to through Bitcoin. So that's the innovation. That's the key to it. I do think it's obviously a bumpy road with CBDCs, but I love the work that's going on in the ecosystem, and it's going to continue because people want this. People want freedom. People want freedom to transact, freedom to interact, and as I say, Bitcoin, Nostr, and the rest of it is and has been so far immense innovation. But there's only more and more to come, and you can see it. Like as I say, we're interacting with these people, and there's some amazing products out there that'll keep getting built. It only continues that journey.
Yeah.
And I think in the end of that centralization of money, like it ends. It ends. Like I don't know when it ends, but it ends. Like it doesn't. It can't continue forever.
Well, that's it. And the fact that we have something now that we can, you know, move to from away from a centralized control system, and and something that would have taken decades, if not hundreds of years, to develop, as you say, the fiat-based centralization of money. Now you have, obviously, with technology, CBDCs can really come about very quickly. It's the exponential change in that, the ability of central institutions and banks to change into this kind of CBDC world is rapid compared to, you know, 100, 200 years ago or 2000 years ago. You just didn't have that ability. But obviously everybody else around the globe is so connected and so more aware and awake of what's happening currently. And people are waking up to the fact that, you know, money isn't what they thought it was. They have to unlearn things and relearn different concepts, which what Bitcoin is, a new paradigm shift in money. But once they do, once they see that, people will refuse to kind of, you know, use the CBDC. There'll be a, you know, some kind of revolution around that. Not, you know, communities will not, you know, accept that because the issue that derives and develops from that is far beyond just money. It's other, personal freedoms. So that's why Bitcoin's of utmost importance in being that freedom money for people and for society, to really develop and grow in the future. But yeah, as always, it's a very interesting time. It will continue to be, and you know, anything can happen down the line as well. You just don't know. But at least you have that anchor in Bitcoin, from a financial and economic point of view, that anybody can radiate to whenever they want. But it's yeah, it's just it's eye-opening again for me from COVID through to now. Your eyes just become so much more open to what's going on, how the world functions, how the world works. It can be quite scary, quite horrific in places, and you just have to really, you know, get a good awareness of what's going on and really tie into what's happening, and then, educate yourself, as I keep saying, around what Bitcoin is, why it's so important for you and your family and your future.
Yeah, but I think humanity kind of has this natural tendency for freedom. Like no one likes to be caged in any way, and I think whether Satoshi invented Bitcoin or whatever, because this problem of centralized money existed, somebody was going to do it along the way. I just still am always mind blown by how it came about, and like just the timing of it and everything was unbelievably perfect. But it was going to happen anyway, and like I often ask myself, what would I be doing if I, because I probably wouldn't understood the problem about Bitcoin, and you should understand the problem first of all. But obviously, Bitcoin highlighted it quite a lot.
Mm.
But what, like, the kind of thought goes through your head, like, if it wasn't for Bitcoin, like, what hope would you really have for the future? Like, and I don't want to never sound doomer, because I always think that humans will always flourish, over the long term. There just has to be bad times, and that's the lessons learned. But like, what would you be doing? How would you be living your life? How would you be thinking? Without it, and there are plenty of people out there that just haven't found the solution yet. And I always often wonder, like, what are they thinking right now? And that's what kind of pushes you towards, against that kind of system of control and towards freedom over time. Like, no human over the long term, you can get away with it for a while controlling society, but it doesn't work. It never works. Humans will break free.
It's not fair. You've got one life as well. You have to, you want to try to live your life. You've got a family, and you've got a system that's working against you. It's extracting your wealth from left, right, and center. It's, even at, with inflation, if somebody's stealing 2% of your property and your goods year on year, you don't notice it. And people, again, still don't understand the concept of, just the fact inflation's eating away at your earnings, your wealth long term, and then you've got everything else on top of that, and everything else that basically a centralized government system can change at a whim, and increase taxes, increase whatever it is. Again, small business owners being hit recently with increases in national insurance and everything else that goes along with that. It's a struggle for many, and it has to change because it just will spiral out of control. How it happens, will it happen very aggressively and quickly, or will it just be a slow grind? And I think it probably, again, most likely will be the slow grind because they'll design it that way. But again, really need to be aware and have your wits about you about what's happening, because you'll wake up one day and be like, shit, yeah, how did that
Yeah.
happen? How did that all go wrong? But yeah, it's
But we're
as
gonna
at
win.
least.
That's the thing. Like, Bitcoin's already winning. Like, you can see it through the adoption. Every year, every couple of years, like, you see, the number of people. Like, I'm not overly fond of, the treasury companies overall, and how people are using those as kind of vehicles. But I believe that I think you already mentioned it. Like, every company should have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Like, what strategy they use after that is fine. Also the ETFs. Like, again, I know the amount of Bitcoin that you have doesn't have any influence on the network, but I would like to see more people, using uh, self-custody Bitcoin and native Lightning, to, like, sending transactions to each other more frequently. Store of value is obviously a great narrative, but that whole medium of exchange, like, just treating Bitcoin as money, basically, and living your life off it,
Yeah.
I think would speed up the whole thing overall. But I think it is, like, and there's more people understand this, and I think, again, we're winning already. And I say we as the Bitcoin community, because it is strong. But everybody then eventually branches into other things like Nostr, and like, you look at the whole centralized system and look at things differently, as you say, and it kind of opens your eyes. So that's Bitcoin has, I think, is going to lead a whole generation down a different path than it would have. So it's not just the money number go up; it's everything that comes along with it. But overall, ultimately, it's going to win. Like, there's no way that people will keep uh, storing their value in fiat or using fiat. There might be, again, sly ways by centralized authorities. They maybe give you incentives to use CBDCs or say you're going to get this yield off Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. But again, some people get burned off it like they did in the last cycle, and that doesn't happen again. People will get burned again, and it doesn't happen again. And the more people get burned like that, more lessons get learned. It always trends towards uh, Bitcoin self-custody, Bitcoin Lightning Network payments. Like it trends towards the system over time, and there's no escaping that.
No, no, it is. It's the source. It's the source that makes you really think for yourself, make your own decisions, live independently. And again, from Emerge 21 as well, that what we've been working on as well, and what we're pushing out now, and we'll be looking at doing over the next few weeks and coming months is, trying to really get that message out there and get more adoption. We'll be probably well, we're currently producing a webinar series as well to actually help with that and just get that. It's trying to find ways. I think it's finding ways of connecting with people as well. Like again, from my point of view, from looking at small businesses, medium-sized businesses, we can kind of look at that aspect and try to, explain the problems that we are having as business owners. And individuals are having exactly the same problems, so it works for both sides. It's not like just, business owners only, but it's really identifying, as you mentioned, the problem and coming at it from that angle and trying to get people, aware of that and realize what the solution is. So I think the more content we put out, like with the podcast, with getting more guests on, but ultimately, have more of a structured form of content as well, and bringing people along on a journey and getting people into the community and really kind of discussing those kind of topics and really, carrying everybody along in a way is important to really bring as much mass adoption as possible, especially now. It's really, really needed. But yeah, there's lots of stuff like, again, the summer has been quiet from the podcast front, but we've been doing a lot of work in the background, making a lot of connections in different aspects of within the Bitcoin communities, but just working on Bitcoin native ideas and projects to produce as well going forward. So there's a lot of exciting stuff in the pipeline now in the coming weeks and months. It's just, trying to get the time to do these things as well with with all the other commitments.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I really wanted to do a kind of like we're back kind of episode just to say that yeah, look, there's been things happening. We're creating content, but we're still here, and we will have a couple like some exciting guests coming up as well over the next while and beyond. But one of the things that I always actually like to kind of finish saying on is yeah, we're producing content like we're in the Bitcoin space, but there's a lot of people out there who maybe feel like they're on the edge of maybe committing more time to Bitcoin space, and whether that's writing an article, posting, doing a podcast, creating content for people, educational content, whatever it is. Um, like I would encourage people just to get involved because that speeds up everything. And again, that's like if you feel that we're not going fast enough, like I think it's on everybody themselves to try and speed that up, and that's what we try and do here. Like we want adoption to speed up because we can see the better world that Bitcoin brings. But if you're kind of on the verge of, should I do something? Like I remember a guy recently we were chatting to Alan as well, where he wanted to do a presentation just to his family, like take them out for dinner and just do a presentation, like a 30-minute presentation, just say, look, close family or whatever. And he said, look, I'm going to take half an hour out. I'm going to explain the problem to you. And I thought that was brilliant. Just to like, I don't know what format he was done, and I never heard from him. I must actually catch up with him. But that was a great thing to do. Like, and he's not a content creator, but he just wanted to do it because he sees the value in it. And you can only, I know people wrestle with this as well, like how much they try and orange pill people because it's wasting breath and wasting energy and stuff like that. Like you do your part, like and um do as much as you can. Like you can't convince everybody, but if you do something, I think it will help. Like even if an audience of 10, you get one, like it's an improvement. That network effect then grows over time. So yeah, it's just an encouragement, I suppose. We're going to keep pushing that content. We're here for the long term. It's going to, as I say, it's going to work out. I can't see any other outcome, but I would encourage other people to get involved as much as they can. Um, and if they're kind of on the verge of maybe starting a book or starting an article or whatever, just do it. just do it.
Or reach out to us anytime because it's just the more you communicate and connect with people in the community as well, or people just kind of getting involved with Bitcoin. Everybody's got their own unique take, their own unique life experience. They come to understand Bitcoin, they can really, get that message out in ways that we can't or I can't and yourself can't. It's just, it's really everybody from the ground up has to make an effort to do that. And any small part helps. It doesn't matter what, everybody has their own kind of drawbacks and kind of thinking, oh, I don't know enough to go out and talk about this, or I don't, have that confidence. But it doesn't matter. Any small mention of Bitcoin or small discussion can make a big impact on somebody's life, which just has a network effect, just as Bitcoin does. So, yeah, that's a good way to end it, Chris. Just everybody play their part, and we'll continue doing that in the weeks, months, and years ahead. And look forward to always a very interesting and exciting time and an exciting ride with Bitcoin as well. But yeah, any final thinking, thoughts, or
No, just on your part as well, just about the community. Like obviously we've got our reach here. I know there's much bigger podcasts and stuff, but like our emails are open as well. If you want to message in and get in contact with us, talk about Bitcoin, talk about whatever. We're open and obviously new ideas as well. I know there's plenty going on. If you want to run anything by us, we're here to listen, of course.
yeah, or if anybody wants to jump on and have a chat as well, feel free because we can, we're bringing guests on board to the podcast, are pretty well-known ones within, the Twitter space or X spaces and various, aspects of Bitcoin. But just getting anybody on who's willing to talk about Bitcoin or has had an experience, a positive experience in Bitcoin, or negative potentially. It would be interesting just having conversations around, what your experiences are and have been, because it's best to get as much information from various angles and from people's experience as possible. But yeah, feel free to reach out anytime. But we'll get to work on the guest list in the coming weeks as well. And if there's anybody who has any suggestions for anybody to come on, any guests, feel free to email us through or contact us, and we'll continue from there. So cool, good stuff, Chris. So we won't keep it any longer. It's been about 45 minutes. My God.
Yeah, enjoy being back though.
Oh yeah,
Enjoy
yeah,
doing this, and
good to get
hopefully
back.
people enjoy it. And yeah, we'll kick on from here again.
Good stuff. Cool. Chat.
Cheers.